And welcome back to the Livingston Parish News Weekly Show, a podcast brought to you by the Livingston Parish News. Ooh, got it right. It is early in the morning. We are here with Mr. Tommy Foster. Glad to have him today. You're going to get to know a little bit about him before he got into what he does currently. And I'm not going to spoil that surprise for you guys, but want to welcome him into the booth, get him to introduce himself, and then we're going to talk a little bit about where he got started. So good morning, Tommy. Tell us all about yourself in about 10 seconds.
Thank you, Mr. McHugh. Again, my name is Tommy Foster, originally from West Monroe, Louisiana. I live in Gonzales and work in Baton Rouge now for a company called Electronic Business Systems. I went to a private high school in a small town up in West Monroe, and I've been in the equipment business, office equipment business now for about 30 years.
Okay. So let's start off with that early life in West Monroe. Where'd you go to high school? And if memory serves, you did end up playing a little bit of college ball, correct?
That's correct.
So where'd you go to high school?
I went to high school for my first year at West Monroe High School, which was a public school.
Yes, sir.
And then there was some racial tension there back during those times. And with my mother being a school teacher, she moved me to a private school called Ridgedale Academy, which also had a very, very good baseball program, and I was kind of being recruited to go there anyway.
Okay. So, not going to ask you about your grades or anything, but I mean, you love baseball, right? You enjoyed the game. Tell us a little bit about the recruitment process, how you ended up at the next level.
Well, it was really happenstance for me. I wound up like I said, moving from West Monroe over to Ridgedale. And at Ridgedale, they had a coach. He's passed away now. And his name was Tommy Huff. And he had played professional ball. And he had umpired a lot of my games as I came up through Little League and Dixie Boys and on up into the next levels. And he had played professional baseball. And he had more connections than a box of Tinker Toys when it came to baseball people, and he wound up getting me my scholarship, and he's the one that wound up getting me looked at by the Kansas City Royals and some others. So for my career in sports, I really was indebted to that man very deeply.
Now, I know that you ended up having a tough accident, as a lot of people do, and you ended up out of the game, but what did sports in your early life teach you?
Well, frankly, it taught me how to be a part of something, because I was always kind of a loner, had a little bit of cockiness to me, and I wanted to stand out instead of being a part of something. And one of the things that Coach Huff was able to do to humble me was to teach me, that you have to be part of a working unit. You can't be the one and all.
Sure. And, that's good coaches usually do that, that
Amen.
Creating a team atmosphere.
Absolutely.
Right. So as you move past this baseball career, don't want to get caught up in the injury or anything. Don't want to bring up past memories. Mm-hmm. But you did have an interesting experience and a very difficult experience that would have, well, in most cases, it would have killed most people. For a lot of people who, like in your position, ended up surviving, it would have crushed them. And that is that you were witness to a robbery and you got shot. Mm-hmm. Thankfully, a hospital was nearby. So walk us through what was going on that evening.
Well, I have a photo snapshot of it in my mind 24/7 if I just want to pull that file up.
Sure.
It happened on January the 15th of 1995. About 8:30 at night, I come from southern Arkansas, where I owned my own business that time, and I went up there, was working. And I stopped into a convenience store and pulled in to get gas and a beverage for the way home. And when I walked into the store, unbeknownst to me, there was a young man in there robbing it. And I came through the door, and I was dressed like a business person, but he took that as like a detective. Mm-hmm. And for some reason, he turned around and pulled the gun on me and shot me. And my reflex, I threw my arm up, it hit me on the wrist bone and blew out 4 inches of bone, and I almost lost my life from the blood loss. But like you mentioned, there was a facility right across the interstate, and for me, that moment was the defining moment of my life. As it changed some things, that I had a greater appreciation for each day and each moment and each opportunity. And so what I did was I started working with people that had the problems that he did. They were drug dependent, had family issues. So I was able to work through a number of people, or work with a number of people over the years in that kind of capacity, and it's been very rewarding for me.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's what do they call it? It's a power move, right? Like you have this experience, and then you turn around and try to make sure that nobody else lives it, or as many people as you can help don't have to live it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
and you went right into what I was going to ask you was how did that affect you? And obviously, it kind of made you into a giving spirit. A lot of people would have been made angry by something like that, but you kind of took it as a moment of learning extra compassion.
Right. I couldn't say that I never had any moments of anger, because I'm sure that I did early on, but it later on, like you said, it turned into gratitude.
Sure, and I mean, for a lot of people, the phrase is, it's not necessarily how we immediately react, but how we eventually grow based on whatever affects us. So,
good.
Pulling forward, you are in sort of the business system solutions business, but you started up there, correct?
I started in I had my own company in the home improvement business, actually.
Okay.
And I did very, very well at that, but I learned how to sell along the way. And my father and my grandfather both had leanings in. One had car sales, one was a monument salesman. So I had good people skills, and I was in sales already for my own self, and so it was a natural fit that just about at the turn of the century, I went into. I was hired for my first office equipment position, which was in the mailing industry.
Okay.
And it was another thing that was just perfect timing in my life, that the good Lord put me at the right place at the right time. In those 8 years from 2000 to 2008, the Postal Service was going through what's called decertification, and they were pulling out old postage meters that printed like stamps onto mail, and it was a digital indicia that was a barcode.
This is a newspaper, actually, and we had one of those up front, and we had the old one up front, too, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, and I was up in West Monroe, and then I had a territory that was a huge territory, but all the towns were rural. And a lot of the company I worked for, we already had a lot of those customers, so all I was doing was going and upgrading them, and it wasn't hard to sell them because the government was making them do it anyway. You couldn't hardly say no.
Sure.
So I wound up being number one in the world 5 years in a row. And my last year, I was number 3 in the world, that I was in the postage machine business. And that notoriety got attention of some management people, and I wound up moving to a position as a general manager of a franchise company in Monroe. And from there, I met the person that connected me to Our Lady of the Lake Systems here, which I had the contracts in Monroe, and they had the contracts here. So again, it's just the good Lord putting the pieces together, and the timing and the continuity of it. And I've been in Baton Rouge now for 10 years.
Sure.
And the only regret I have is I didn't move 30 years ago.
Well, you told us a story about all your good sales and stuff, but I want to connect those dots because,
Sure.
Based on the one-to-one you and I had, you kind of got recruited, to come down here.
I did.
So tell us a little bit about, I mean, it's kind of like getting recruited to go play college baseball.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it's kind of flattering. Again, I was just in the right place at the right time, and the gentleman there's a gentleman here that at Scott Bailey Enterprises. His name was Brian Bailey, and I worked for him for my first 4 years, and he brought me down here and paid my way to get here, and so I've always had a great deal of gratitude for him. I took a better position 6 years ago, right up the street. I still work on Industrialplex Boulevard, and I work for the Wax family now, the Electronic Business Systems. And I just Scott Bailey was great. They were great people, and I work for great people now. So just once again, the Lord's put me in a really good spot with really good people.
Well, like you said, you moved up the road. You're still in Industrialplex area, and what sort of attracted you to make that move? What was the what did EBS offer that kind of made you say, I want to be part of that culture. I want to be part of that system.
Right. Yeah. It was for me. It was. I met with the general manager, who's my boss now. His name's Daryl Wax. I met with him probably 6 different times, and then we had 4 interviews after that. So, and I think honesty was a big part of me landing where I am, because the first interview that I had, he asked me would I meet him at the coffee house up the street at 8:30 in the morning, and I told him I would.
Sure.
And I prayed about it overnight. I got up the next morning. I called him. I said, "Look, I can't with good conscience meet you while I'm working for another man to be hunting for a job while he's paying me.
That's
even
fair.
though I'm considering leaving on my own. I still don't think it's right for my boss that I have now for me to be meeting somebody." So I told him, I can either meet you before work or after work. And I didn't realize the impact that had on Daryl until after I was hired. When the 3 owners got me in there, they told me, they said, the honesty that you had, about the unwillingness to, meet during your current job, and the posture that you had was a real big factor in it. So I'm just grateful to work for people that do notice things like that and do put a really high premium and a really high value on building relationships and maintaining and nurturing those relationships. And that's what, at EBS, I've never heard gossip in the building in 6 years. I've never heard any kind of slander, any kind of rumors, any kind of anything. It's everybody in the building is pulling its weight, and we're all, it's like a big family.
And it's like that coach, right? It's
exactly.
a team.
Exactly.
They built a team atmosphere.
And I fit right in like the last piece on the jigsaw puzzle at that place.
There you go.
It's just a perfect fit.
So tell us a little bit about, you talked earlier about selling postal machines.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're kind of in a whole sort of suite solution offer.
Correct.
You'll have a lot of different products and services.
Exactly.
Give us a brief overview of that.
Well, 20 years ago, I'm really glad you brought that up, because a lot of people don't know these things that I'm about to tell you. 20 years ago, there was one copier company. His name was Xerox. They had 97% of the market share. In fact, in the movie My Cousin Vinny, which I think was made in 1998, there's a scene in that movie where the prosecutor is the DA is calling his office on one of these big bag cell phones they had in 1998. Anyway, he's calling his office, and he asked the lady to Xerox over the records. He doesn't say copy them.
Right.
He uses the brand name.
Right.
Because there was only one player in the game.
Right. That's like Kleenex used to be.
And what happened was the advent of what's called scanning, which for the people that don't know, scanning is nothing but taking a picture of a document and transmitting it or saving or whatever you want to do. But it's basically a photograph of a document.
Sure.
So now you look at the market and you got Canon, Ricoh, Gestetner, Sharp, Konica Minolta. What do they have in common? They're camera companies.
Right.
Xerox is almost gone. Xerox had 97%. They've got about 3 now. They've got their 3 back.
Yeah.
So the company I work for, Ricoh and Savin, it's got about 50% of the market now. And then there's several others that combine for the other 50%. So it's a very competitive market, and it's been taken over by camera and technology companies. So no longer is this, you put a copy in and it makes a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy.
Right.
Now you're looking at true originals that were sent. You scan it into the machine, it pops up, you hit file to save or whatever, and you've got a document that you've created and saved. And then it goes from, what do we do with that piece of paper once we've saved it? Right. What are all of our options? So we have software options, hardware options that provide solutions depending on if you're doing AP or HR or whatever you're doing. We have a system that fits into each individual niche, like medical, legal, all of those. We have solutions.
So a lot of your business is it starts with the copier.
Exactly.
And then from there you're kind of expanding out. I mean, what else do y'all offer? I mean, not to say that people don't need copiers, because most commercial businesses, even your basic ones are going to need some kind of copier.
Right.
But after you get past the copier, you're going to figure out, and we're going to talk a little bit about specifics of how you sell the copier in a bit. Mm-hmm. But, once you sell the copier, what else do you offer once you get past the copier? What goes with it?
That's a good question too. That's our recurring revenues come from we bill for. We set up what's called maintenance contracts.
Okay.
And what that does is that provides the customer free parts, free labor. They never have to pay for parts. They never have to pay for labor, and they never have to pay for the toner. So it's basically it's a $50 a month minimum. And so it's kind of like insurance. You're paying $50 a month to get everything, and in case it breaks, you don't have to pay $10,000 to replace a leg.
Right.
So we have those
insurance.
Monthly and quarterly and annual contracts that we bill. And if we've got, and I'm just making up numbers, if we've got 10,000 customers and everybody's sending us $150, $200 a month, well, then that's how, the bread and butter of how we maintain the revenue streams. We also have two other types of technology under the building at EBS that have nothing to do with copy machines.
Okay.
One of them is called Court Call, which is basically, and with that system, we are saving the state of Louisiana $1.3 million each year because we provide a camera stream, kind of like Zoom. It was the courtroom Zooms, basically, is what it is.
Okay.
And we were here way before Zoom, but it's specifically for court systems. And this way, if a man committed murder in West Monroe, Louisiana, and he's being housed in Angola, and he's got to go to court, they don't have to drive him in a van with 40 armed guards and 2 or 3 loads of people, and then he may escape and all these kind of things. They can send a stream from the courtroom he's at to the judge or where he's in that jurisdiction, and they can arraign him or have the court session or any of that kind of thing. So it's very, very safe, very, very productive, and we have it all over the nation. We don't just do that in Louisiana. We do it for court systems all over the nation. We also have Higher Ground, which is a voice-over IP type technology that we have nationwide for fire stations, police stations, these voice-over communication systems. So the print and copy technology, the voice-over systems, and the court systems, we have a well-rounded company that has several different technologies under the same roof. Mine just happens, the one I manage is to do with digital print.
Okay. And the interesting thing about, as I'm listening to you talk about those things is, they're all Internet of Things, IoT. They're all based on Internet type technologies. Correct. With the copiers and the scanners, trying to hook them into your office network.
Right.
Voice over IP. If you're curious about what that is out there, that means that you're hooking your phone up to an Ethernet line as opposed to running it through a traditional phone trunk.
Right.
If you have a good internet connection, usually you're able to get better connectivity. Also, little fewer charges because you're not dealing with those phone companies. And then finally, as you mentioned, those streams in between courthouses, that's fascinating. Because, you hear a lot about local marshal's office. That's a lot of money for them to mobilize and transport those guys.
Right.
And it's very difficult. So that
and
all very
safety
interesting.
Factor, too, that they get loose or anything happen.
And so, and of course, if you're driving anywhere in Louisiana, there's a chance for a flat tire or blowing out your whole tire.
There you go.
But let's back up and focus a little bit specifically on, as you mentioned, you deal with the copiers.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about just a traditional sort of run-of-the-mill setup you're going to offer to an office building. Let's say you walk in, they've got 10 employees, they run off probably 500 copies a month.
They got what? 10 what?
They got 10 employees that are all running off about 50 copies a month of whatever it happens.
A very low volume?
Yes, yeah.
Depending on what, I would sit down in a situation like that, determine what they're doing now basically with the equipment they have. What is their goal? What are they trying to achieve? In situations where people are printing 50 to 100 pages a month, our machines are commercial grade. So even a very small one would print 3,000 to 5,000 pages a month. One of our entry level little bitty desktop ones would do that. So if they really have a small volume, I would recommend them basically to an office equipment dealer, because there you're going to pay a little bit for the equipment, but a lot for the supplies.
Right.
But if you're not printing a lot, you're not going to use a lot of supplies. So
Sure.
since their equipment off the shelf like that isn't commercial grade, it's made for small office, home office, then I would suggest that they stay where they are in that situation.
Okay.
And then I would let them know, in case your print or your needs change, I'll be in touch every 6 months or something like that, just to follow up.
Okay. Let's take a different example, a different path. What if you're walking into an office that's 500 copies a day? You're looking at maybe 60 employees.
Right.
And maybe it's a legal office or something that's real heavy,
Right.
got to have real heavy paper
Right.
usage. What are you looking at in that situation?
Well, I'll give you a good, I think everybody in the world that lives in this area has heard of Dudley DeBosier.
Sure.
They're one of our better clients. We have all of their locations across the state. And in offices like that where you got 30, 40 people, you usually do see a bigger type machine. It's usually got 3 or 4 different paper trays of different size paper. It's usually got a big stapler and a hole punching kit and all kind of what we call the finishing options that go on a machine. Most of them don't fax now, but some of them still do.
Sure.
And 99% of them are doing the digital scanning. So that's kind of what you would do. In a situation like that, you would want a big centralized machine that various people can use, and then maybe a couple more to keep people from walking, so far to the machine.
Sure.
And the talk at the coffee, nobody, they do the talking at the coffee pot and at the copy machine.
Right.
So we try to keep them from gathering in situations like that and kind of spread equipment around that meets their needs.
I got you. So, and you're still trying to keep that team within these office buildings, but you're also trying to build a little bit of efficiency into it as well.
Absolutely.
Tell us a little bit about those finishings that you just talked about. For a lot of people, they think they have to go maybe to a commercial printing location or something like that. And maybe if you really want all the bells and whistles, you can. But for some basic, as you said, hole punching, stapling, it can be done within the printer?
Absolutely. You can program it from the machine or from your computer, and you can create a job. And when you print that job, you can tell the machine to hole punch it with 2 punches or 3 punches. Or you can tell it to staple in the top left corner, the top right corner, both corners. There's just a myriad of things, finishing options that we have, including folding. We even have machinery. It's called a saddle stitch finisher.
Okay.
Which is actually a folder. And when the document comes out, it's folded and then sent to the stapler or however that is, and it finishes all the way out. So from folding, stapling, hole punching, we've got all the finishing options that you would need.
Okay. And maybe if you're in sales or you're somebody who's putting together a lot of projects or things of that nature, maybe want to look into your options because you have all those finishings that may save you some time if maybe you're going to deal with a client that's only got 5 employees, so you don't need 50 of them. You don't need to go to a commercial printer.
Another thing that we do is we provide pre-owned equipment. We get a ton of equipment back from, let's say, lease providers that a person went in business for 3 months and then he's out of business all of a sudden, which happens every day. And we get machines back that sometimes, I got one for a B&I client, Mr. Kern, Philip Kern. And the machine he's got now would probably cost between $15,000 and $20,000. I got it for him, and it had less than 1 month of pages on it. It was a 2-year-old machine, but it had less than a month of pages on it. And we were able to do a very short-term in-house financing at 0%, and got Mr. Phillips set up.
There you go.
He's been a great customer.
You've talked, yeah, and Phil's a small outfit, kind of like we talked about earlier. I think 3 to 4 employees plus Phil himself. Philip Kern Architects is who we're talking about. We did do a podcast with him last summer. That would be summer of 2020. That was on Zoom. A lot of fun.
Great client.
Going to be trying to get him in here, actually. But so you've talked about a smaller client. You've talked about a bigger client. You named him. You have Dudley DeBosier. So y'all really can service the gamut of businesses. You can do small, you can do large, you have options for that.
We recently just did a 16 machine installation at a big company out in Geismar called Methanex.
Okay.
And it was 16 60-page-a-minute machines. So the
Wow.
huge machines was loaded out with all the finishers and all the stuff. And it was a bid. We bid against every company in the Gulf South.
Okay.
And we won the bid. And I think, that says a lot about our willingness to stick our necks out on the pricing and really go low and focus in on the recurring revenues, like I mentioned earlier. So in that case, that's kind of the way we did it. We made a little money up front, but we weren't greedy. We got the deal. So we secured that, and we do performance contractors. We have all of their locations. So there's several contractors in this area that we do work for all over the United States.
Sure. And it's interesting that you brought that up. A lot of times when you're dealing with government or a bid situation, you can't be greedy. You got to go in with good price.
That's right.
So to kind of wrap this up, I want you to give me sort of like, we do a little bit of a rock and a hard place here. So I want you to tell me briefly what you feel like is your best success story. Like you got a good testimonial, the person came back to you and said, I just can't thank you enough. But then I'm going to sandwich that with what was one of the hardest sales you ever had to make, one of the hardest situations you ever faced yourself with, and how'd you handle it? So let's start with the good first. What was a testimonial that you got?
Wow, I've had so many good moments, and very few of the ones on that other side, praise the Lord. But I think the deal that I just talked about was for Methanex is was a friend of mine that gave me their name 10 years ago.
Okay.
And one of the things that, and again, I'm not going to get callous as sitting here patting myself on the back, but I'm a very persistent person when I am doing my job, and I try to, put a lot of energy into everything I'm doing and to just not give up. And I bet I bid on that thing 3 or 4 different times over a 10-year period. But every time I worked for other companies, and I wasn't in control of how much profit was put in, and so forth, I never got the deal. So
Sure.
with this one being in a better management position, it allowed me to go out there a little further and be able to come down to the right place. And so after 10 years of trying, I finally did get the deal. So that was very rewarding for me.
I got you. Well, okay, so the other question, what was one that was just so difficult, but you persevered and you got it? And you don't have to name a name.
No. I get it. Those are going to be so few and far. I'm not sure I can really. I did have one deal, and I certainly won't. It was for a church, and they ordered 2 machines, and the pastor had called back and somehow or another canceled the order after we had ordered the machines, and that kind of hurt my feelings a little bit. I've never had anything like that happen, and I don't know why the situation arose, but we wound up we had a couple of customers that needed the devices, so it wasn't a big deal. It just, I guess from my perspective, I think it hurt my feelings worse than it did any other kind of harm.
Sure. And that happens. And so you kind of said it, you found, or other people needed the machine, so you just kind of moved on.
Right. Yeah. And I think with whether it's your job, my job, I think really professional people do get emotionally invested in their clients and in their work and things like that. So when a situation like that did happen, it was just a kind of a disappointment. And
sure.
I had to move on.
And you learned from it.
Exactly.
Folks, we appreciate you joining us. Tommy Foster here from Electronic Business Solutions. Systems. I always want to call it solutions because you're providing a solution, but it is Electronic Business Systems, Mr. Tommy Foster. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And again, thank you guys for joining us and listening in. Please remember that you can find Livingston Parish News once a week in print on Thursdays. We are also online, www.livingstonparishnews.com. We are on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. You can check out all of our podcasts there. On all of those platforms, we find a way to get them out to you, the public. We appreciate you joining us, and we will see you next time.